the last part of this, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the next unit as well, but one of the other things that's being reformed is citizens in the environment. So we want to protect other people's health. And what's happening is at a meat packing plant, the conditions aren't so sanitary. And so what's happening on the left there is they're cleaning, is it pigs or cows? I don't really know, some sort of four-legged beast. And the situations in these meat packing plants was definitely unsanitary and unsafe. I will find an excerpt from The Jungle, which is the book on the right, and read it to you in class. But the idea is that this book was written by Upton Sinclair, who was a journalist who was writing about the unsafe conditions in a meatpacking plant in Chicago. And basically, he wrote about the fact that mice were crawling around in different piles of meat, and they had meat that had rotted, and they would just put it in bleach and then put it into a container to make sausages. And it's really kind of disgusting what they ended up documenting, but the meatpacking industry was kind of raked over the coals during this time period as a result of muckraking journalists like Upton Sinclair. So a muckraker is someone who kind of scrapes up the guck and the dirty stuff about different industries and would write about it so as to promote understanding and knowledge of what was happening there. So a lot of people read The Jungle, and incidentally they passed the Meat Inspection Act, which then set forward some regulations for cleanliness in meatpacking industries and created a federal meat inspection program that was in place for decades. So another reform is in the workplace in terms of sanitation and health. Out of this also did come the Pure Food and Drug Act, which said that you could not sell contaminated foods, which is one of the things that was talked about in The Jungle, was the selling of contaminated sausage that had been skidded around on by rats, pooped on by rats. Rats had died and just been kind of scooped into the mix of things. So it really wasn't food that people would want to necessarily take advantage of, but they sold it cheaper, so at least they thought that that was appropriate. The last thing that the last two sections talk about, which I'm saying you don't necessarily have to read over, but you should still understand, is the idea that the government is also corrupt at the time, and so we want to reform the government. On a local level, we want to reform at the mayoral level, starting off, because there are things like natural disasters that took place, earthquakes, tornadoes, and the aftermath was completely disheveled and unorganized. And so we're looking to get progressive mayors into office that could actually take leadership roles and help alleviate the chaos after these things happen. At the state level, we're looking to kind of bring in reform governors who wanted to establish railroad laws, to regulate mines, to protect workers, to establish child labor laws, and to limit the number of work hours that children and women and men could work. And ultimately, we ended up at the national level with several reform elections. And what they wanted to do was make sure that they were cleaning out the inappropriate rulers who were in office and make sure that they were being brought in by people who were not only progressive in the fact of trying to take control of what was happening in the government, but also make sure that there were appropriate things happening at all levels. So we have the passage of the 17th Amendment, and I'm trying to find my Constitution here. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I just want to read you the text of the 17th Amendment. Here we go. Okay. So the 17th Amendment, and there's 3 clauses, but basically it just says, the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, blah, 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 and they shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislatures. And so we're shifting to the direct election of senators is what's happening, and this was passed in 1913. So Clause 2, when vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the executive authority of such state shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. Okay? And then Clause Clause 3 talks about a different piece that does not apply here. But 17th Amendment was passed to have direct election of senators by the people so that we knew that there were not corrupt officials that were going into office. They had to pass through a clean election and then would take office when their term started. So the Progressive Era was a lot of progress towards reform and change in the United States, and we'll see how that all kind of played out in the next unit.